In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in black and white emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our world.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of America in Black and White. Tonight on America in Black and White, we welcome a man whose life story is a testament to endurance, calling, and purpose-driven leadership. Michael A. Wilkins is not simply a consultant, not simply a speaker, not simply a pastor. He is a builder of people, systems, and communities. For more than 25 years, he helped reshape Washington state governments through accountability, transparency, and operational excellence. And in 2025, he stepped boldly into entrepreneurship as the founder of Doge Consulting LLC, carrying with him a lifetime of wisdom, discipline, and service. But Michael's story begins long before the titles. It begins with the strength of a mother who taught him resilience and a great-grandmother whose faith and fortitude became the blueprint for his life. It begins with the lessons of community and responsibility, the responsibilities of leadership, and the belief that transformation is not an event, it's a lifestyle. Tonight, we explore the journey of a man who has served as a pastor, a coach, a trainer, and author, a motivational speaker, and a public servant. A man who has chaired advisory boards, shaped housing developments, influenced regional planning, and stood on international stages, including TEDx Cairo, sharing a message of empowerment and possibility. This is not just an interview. This is a masterclass in purpose, perseverance, and the power of legacy. Michael Wilkins, welcome to America in Black and White.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Hello, sir, and welcome back.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. So is there anything you'd like to say to our audience before we pick up where we left off last? Because your masterclass is definitely one that I think everybody should get an understanding of.
I would like to thank you for welcoming me back. I would just say that one thing I picked up since the last time we met is that leadership is a 24-hour, 365-day commitment. It's not something you put to sleep when you go home. It's not something you just wake up when you go to work. It's 24/7. People are watching this all the time. And so we got to make sure we're leading with authentic values. And we also got to make sure we're listening to the pulse in the community.
Right. And so let's, as you were here last, what I would like to start with now is, the work that you do as a consultant and as a government leader. You spent over 25 years in Washington state government. What accomplishments are you most proud of in doing that work?
Serving the community itself. Although it was a job, it was a landscape to give back. As I told you before, I grew up on welfare, didn't grow up on me. And a lot of people living in poverty don't have the blueprint to be successful. So I felt like that was my job. I felt like I accomplished most of what I was supposed to do. But at the same time, I didn't want to go back to my community with an empty hand. Sometimes I think policy can help us scale things, and then there's times where it diminishes what it's supposed to accomplish.
Right. So what does accountability mean to you when it comes to public service?
Number one, that we need to be honest with our integrity about what we're going to do with tax dollars. You know, a lot of times people in politics say they're going to do this, they're going to do that, and they do just the opposite. They look out for themselves. And so I had to oversee $320 million worth of government funds for SNAP benefits for TANF, and it wasn't easy. But I can tell you this, I accounted for every dollar. I made sure that every dollar was spent the way it's supposed to be. And when we came back, you know, there was no fraud. There was no one who was sneaking something behind the scenes, stealing. I'm not saying that doesn't take place, but it didn't take place under my watch because I take that very serious. There were some workers that, you know, I heard about while I was working with that were colleagues of mine that caught stealing because they have access. And to me, that puts a bad, I don't want to say blueprint for people because they don't trust government anyway. And so they'd be like, see, that's what I told you. And so I just didn't want that to happen under my watch as a leader because I felt like it would be egg on my face and I couldn't go back to my community and say, you know, I need your help. Because we both have to work together. It's not just me telling them or giving them. We need collaboration from them as well.
Right. And I want to thank each and every one of you that's watching here on the show this evening. And for those of you that are always here for every day as we do our shows, I want to thank you for tuning in. And I hope you guys get to learn a whole lot more as to what Michael does in leadership. Can you tell us, how did you approach transforming government systems?
I always made it a safety zone for people to challenge whatever I was going to teach them, the formalities of what I was going to give them policy. I just gave them a safety zone to challenge that because they sometimes have a fresh perspective. They can give me some insight on things we could do different. I always made sure that we had what I call a whiteboard where we wrote down questions. If I didn't have the answer, I'd get back to them. But I also tried to find the influencers. So, you know, certain sects have people that are very influential in their corner or with their colleagues. I always tried to find those people because they were I won't say my bridge over the troubled waters, if I could say that. Because there were a lot of troubled waters. When you change policy, when you're trying to work with government, a lot of times it's challenging and people don't want change. But one thing I learned, Mr. King, is change is inevitable. We can't avoid it. There's just no way. When you get up tomorrow, it's not going to be the same as it was yesterday. And so what I try to do is help people get across the landscape of change so that they can recognize it up front and that there were no surprises. As if there were, just be honest and upfront about it. Don't lie. These people don't want to be lied to. I don't want to be lied to. Neither do the politicians. And so we have to find a way to be very, very honest and have some integrity and trust. And that was something that wasn't always easy, but it definitely was the end goal.
So, you know, when it comes to public service, you know, that's one of those things that, you know, not everybody has done work in public service. And so I think when you mention and you speak of, you know, the accountability part and the leaders or the influencers that you're looking for that were working under you in order to really get this work done, can you tell us from your public service perspective, what are some of the things in public service that with you making sure that you're accountable for what you're accountable for, what are those things that you think people should know most as to how the situation went as to the work that you're doing and how that goes out into the community?
Okay. Thank you, Charles. That's a great question. Number one, there's always somebody that comes in and does an accountability, or I want to call them a fraud task force that goes behind the scene to make sure every dollar's been spent the way you said it was. At the end of a quarter, we always have to account for what we were given and what we spent. If there was anything left over, why? So one thing I found out in government that some people don't understand is that if you were given money by the feds or by the state, you probably want to spend it. If you don't spend it, why did you ask for it? So you want to make sure you spend it all, but spend it prudently. So I'll give you an example where I had to put on a leadership conference to recognize the employees in my region. I think there was 900 and some odd employees in our region, and I was given a certain amount of dollars to spend on awards, food, the venue, so on and so forth, some entertainment. I overspent. And so some people, why'd you do that? Because it's the employees, and they usually don't get recognized but once a year. Everybody's not going to get recognized. They're going to vet who gets recognized. So I'm going to overspend. And so my boss got, she got on my case the first time, but I really didn't care. I said, these are the employees that work for you. You go back and tell them you don't want to spend the money. Oh, I don't want to do that. Okay, then let me spend it. But because I spent it wisely and I had her on my side, it helped. When she saw the function, she even felt better the next year. She upped the ante a little bit. She's like, wow, that was powerful. Well, yeah, because we're doing it for the employees. Right. But what I asked her to do, Charles, it was a little different. I kind of pushed the norm was we did it at this venue. They had to take off work to come to the venue. Then they had to rush back to work. I was like, why don't we do it at their place of business? Give them time off, let everybody celebrate for like half a day. So that's what we did throughout the region. We found that it was cheaper and that every employee felt like they were celebrated. And so employee morale went up, personnel was better, and we looked at our, I'm going to call them KPIs, which is key points of investments and things. All of our points went up. We were progressing way better than we had before. Now, she can give that to me as an accolade, but I'm going to say, no, it was a team. I asked some influencers, what do you want? We want to be celebrated, but we don't want to go to this venue because they felt like it was fake. Like, you're just giving this to me to kind of appease me so that I'll do this work. No. I want this to be a way of life. I want this to be a way of work every day so that when you come to work, you're smiling and you put your 100% forward every day. That's what work is about to me, Charles. I don't know about others. Some people are coming for the paycheck. Good luck with that. They don't have to stick around, and sometimes your employer will find a way to get rid of you or move on. So
okay,
always put 100%.
So can you tell us why is it so purposeful that you have high morale?
I don't know how you exist without it. I didn't grow up in that type of environment. Right. High morale just seems to make the day go smoother. You're happy to do what you're doing, and the end user can tell when you're not. Right. Let's just say we stop at Starbucks, since they're one of the most prevalent coffee companies, and you go in there and the people are nasty. You gonna go back? Probably not. The coffee better taste real good if you got treated nasty. Are you gonna give them a tip? No. So to me, you're driving clients to you or you're driving them away. In this world we call B2B business, we have to be about our business, Charles. We got to treat people like we want to be treated. And sometimes I say that carefully because some people don't care how they're treated. I do. I want to be treated with respect. But I know I have to give it even when I'm not giving it.
Wow. So what leadership qualities are essential for effective public service?
Number one, trust, faith, being your natural self. Don't, some people say, try to fake it till you make it. It doesn't always work in leadership because people will figure you out, if you're one way this day and the next. Another thing I'll tell you is one time I don't want to say caught. Somebody saw me in the community after work. I was yelling at somebody. I was getting in their face about something going on in the community, and they called me out. Thank God they did in a private conversation, and that changed my leadership going forward, Charles, because, like I said, you're a leader 24/7. She said, that's not the way you would do that at work, Mr. Wilkins. So why are you doing that here? I didn't think about it that way. I thought I was off work. When you leave that threshold, we feel like, well, I'm no longer on their dime. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. And so I think about that every day when I'm out in the community, if I'm at home, or if I'm at church, to watch what I'm portraying, because that's what people are looking at.
Wow. That I love that because I think sometimes, as you say, you were off the clock and you was treating that situation differently. I think for a lot of people, when it comes down to it, is that they feel like that those are just separate things. But in leadership, that's different because you're always leading. So in your time of always leading, and from that moment there that you used as an example, what are some of the things that you set as a standard for yourself going forward that people always see the consistency of Michael Wilkins?
You know, in the Bible it says iron sharpens iron. I made sure that I put myself around a circle there. I was held accountable. People called me out, even sometimes in front of others, which is okay as long as they did it passionately. But I always made sure that there was an open space for people to do that. Hey, I'm not perfect. Just because I'm a leader doesn't make me perfect. Challenge me. You know, if I'm talking about policy and you don't agree, it's okay to challenge. That's how we grow.
Right.
And secondly, let's respect one another. When we talk to one another, there's a certain level of respect we need to have. I never yelled at anybody. There was times when I had to call people out. Sometimes I did it privately. Sometimes I did it in front of the audience, just maybe as a point of reference. But I always did it in love.
Right.
And one thing I always tried not to do was, if somebody was caught in a situation where maybe they had been fired or I saw that person out, I never tried to expose them. I let them expose themselves.
Ooh,
Because
okay.
I feel like if you expose people once, you know, maybe they've been in a bad situation, sometimes it backfires. Because what if it happens to you? They can turn those tables pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And so I had to learn, I had to fire somebody that really I cared about, but they did something wrong. And so when I saw them in the community, I treated them with this level of respect that they didn't expect. Even had the person in tears, like, you know, why are you trying to treat me like I'm a king today? Because you are. Although you were fired, you are king still today. You can still rise above what happened. You can still reach the pinnacle in life, your destiny, whatever it is. You're just not going to do that with me. But whatever we had together at that job, whatever we were able to give you, I know you still have. And so go take that and thrive, fly, soar, do whatever. But don't let this diminish you. And this person, little did I know, was one of the reasons that I am where I am, because they called on me at a time of my life when I didn't expect them to. And, you know, this man is somebody of integrity. I didn't know it was them that opened the door. But that's like I said, you need to watch how you treat people, because you never know what's going to happen with those people, where they're going to go. And sometimes they can open a door that's been shut. Sometimes they can shut a door that needs to be shut. So I try to make sure I always treat people with a high level of respect. That's the way my mom was. Now, I'm not going to say there's not some people I don't like, Charles, because that'd be a lie. There's some people I can't stand. Just going to be honest. But I learned that if I want to go to heaven, I got to love them. And so if I got to love them, I got to learn to let some things go. I just need to know what sandbox to play with them in. And that's just being honest.
You know, that's so key, and that right there, I think it's so important. But I think it's a small fraction of situations in dealing with people that a lot of people miss. What are some of the things that some of those potential leaders and leaders that are watching this show now, what are some of the things that you think they can learn about situations like this to make them a little bit better in the work that they do?
I'm going to say this with a lot of love, a lot of integrity and honesty. Don't look at yourself as a boss. Look at yourself as a leader. There's a big difference. Look at yourself as a leader. And I would say that the greatest leaders out there take ordinary people and make them extraordinary individuals. If you're not doing that, you might want to check and see what you're doing wrong. If I'm not breeding a leader, I'm not really a leader, because it's not just about me. It's about growing like a grapevine. And hopefully every grape you get off that vine is succulent. And so I think about that every individual. Now, some people, they may not do anything with what we give them, the environment we create. But that's on them.
Yes.
Don't let it be on me.
What was the biggest challenge you faced in government work?
I'm gonna say this with some latitude: racism. A lot of racism. I'm just going to be honest. There was a lot of racism, a lot of assumptions. People, when they see you, they assume they know you. Sometimes they open your mouth or kind of give them your pedigree. But there was a lot of racism. And when I say it wasn't always about color, sometimes it was financially tied, sometimes it was community tied, but it stunk. And it bothered me because I didn't want to talk sometimes. I didn't want to open up a conference. I didn't want to start a conference. I didn't want to build a conference because I kind of knew the end result. But I found that the more passionate I was about it and trying to squash some of that, I ended up getting what I wanted, or what we wanted, I should say. But it was hard. It was a hard hill to climb. But I found that if you don't climb it, you'll just end up down in the valley somewhere. And I was with some people that I want to say that were different color than me, different race than me, different ethnic background, different beliefs. That's where I garnered a lot of information because I was willing to open my heart and change. Sometimes I feel like when we come from certain backgrounds, especially poverty, it becomes a mindset. And if you don't change that mindset, before you know it, you're creating more poverty than you wanted.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So, so but, in just not, not moving too far within this, but what you're saying is so key. But can you tell us, how were you able to restrain and stay so collective in those situations? Because I know it had to be tough.
On a couple of occasions, I had to walk outside, take me a little brief walk just to contain myself, kind of a woosah moment. Other times, I had to remember that this thing was bigger than me and them. It really wasn't about the individual or individuals that were confronting me. And so that gave me solace. One time, an individual that was, I want to say he was the director of our division, which is pretty important, said something to me that kind of set the tone. I'm counting on you. When he said that, I was like, whoa, you give me some power, right? But what, but what he was really saying is that it's really up to you to set the tone. And so I had to think about that, Charles. I really did down deep inside. And I thought about, wow, if I wanted to change, I need to change. And so I just kind of changed my perspective because we were in a negative environment. And he told me that he wasn't used to working with Black men. Okay. But what I asked him was not to see my color, to see my character. And that changed how we looked at one another. I didn't look at his color. I looked at his leadership. I looked at his character. I looked at how he ran things. I learned a lot from him. And I think that we became really, really great friends in and outside of work because of that.
So how did you build trust with communities and stakeholders?
Being a man of my word. I'm careful to tell somebody I'm going to do something and not do it because that's usually a setup for failure. So I'll give you an example. I think I told you I was on this committee for a transit agency called South Transit in Washington State as an ADA chair. I was working with a lot of people that are disabled, sensory disabled, blind, deaf, physical ailments. I was one of the few that didn't have those issues. And they asked me to take a ride with a blind person. I told them no. I had time to do that. That wasn't my job. I wasn't getting paid to be this chair. I told the guy I didn't have time until he invited me to the House of the Blind and Deaf to see them working. I got wild. I was like, wow, they can do all this and not see and not have these sensories. And so when I rode with this individual downtown Seattle into the business sector, I began to cry, and he wanted to know why. I said, I've taken a lot of things for granted. You can't see. You got everywhere you need to be. And I can see, I can hear, I can taste, I can smell, I can walk, I can feel, I can do all those things. I've taken a lot for granted. I had to learn not to do that anymore. As I said, sometimes we put on our assumptions, and those are easy to become callous marks on our lifestyle because we're not willing to change. Serving on that committee opened up the door for me to serve on other committees because people heard about my passion. One thing I've learned, Charles, is that if I'm going to serve on a committee, when somebody needs to speak up, speak up. Don't just sit there in the committee drinking coffee and donuts just to be there. Say something. Add to the message or to what we're doing. I found a lot of people, they were just coming there just to get the coffee and donuts and get away from work. I ain't coming to do that. I'm gonna have some say so, and I'm gonna be able to take something back to the people I serve and help them build their community to be a better place.
Because again, I think people understood, the tough work of being in public service, because public service is just what it is. It's about the public. But I think people see it as so many different things because of how they view and see politics. And when you see politics, I think, sometimes you have to learn to infer how to interpret what you're actually seeing and try to find out more. But a lot of people don't do that. And, when you say you have these events and some people come just to eat the donuts and coffee, why do you think those people would come just to say that they were there, but they don't have anything to say?
They're not vested. Some of them, like me, were sent to a meeting by some higher up or some influential person, and they don't know the details of what's going to go on. So I was quiet too. But I was able to get some information more about the committees I served on. And I had an interest as well. Because I'll be honest with you, I was very green when serving on transportation. I didn't know nothing about any train. Most of the time I didn't know where they were planning on going, the stops, all the requirements just to build a structure. I learned a lot. And from that, it gave me some humility with dealing with driving, how I treated people on the road. And so I just learned something because I began to ask questions. One of the things a lot of people don't understand is how fast trains travel, that they start stopping long before they get to a station. I didn't know that. When you think about you stopping at a light, you might stop a few 100 seconds before you get to the light. A train might stop 400 or 500 feet before they get to a stop because it takes that long to slow down. That's why they don't want you crossing across a railroad when the stop sign's down, like don't cross. Because if you do, the propensity is for you to die or get killed.
Right.
They're causing hundreds of thousands of pounds. So be careful. So I just had to think about a lot of those intricacies dealing with the public. And I had to train them on some of these things. Hey, when it says the train's going to leave at 9:45, don't get there at 9:55. It's gone. Get there before.
Station.
Plan your day.
Got that right. So let's talk about Doge, and I want to make sure that I want you guys to understand we're not talking about Elon Musk as Doge. So can you tell us what inspired you to launch Doge Consulting Incorporated? LLC, I mean.
Okay. First of all, I'll give the spelling for Doge, Doage, which is my mother's maiden name. It is an Italian Latin name. What inspired me to start it, I think, happened after I retired. I knew I wanted to be a motivational speaker. I knew I wanted to have some influence in the community. I had a pretty large following on LinkedIn, and a person contacted me. I'm going to call that person my coach at this time. I won't name him, but he contacted me. He kind of challenged me. And that kind of opened the segue for me to go into this Deutsche Consulting. I still wasn't thinking about it. To be honest with you, I hadn't even opened the business when I went to Cairo, when I was doing some other things. And he had a little chat with me. What you really doing, Michael? I was like, he got his nerve. He don't make no payments on the meals I make. And why are you getting all up in my space? But it's what he said after. He says, I feel like you have the material, the forward to be a great leader. People had told me that before, but sometimes when you don't believe in yourself, you just don't. And so, like I said, he was challenging me. He asked me to send in some information. He asked me to do an impromptu speech. And I'm going to say that I met the score, which was surprising to me, but it was the passion I had behind it. And I told him a story about me. He's like, wow, that was powerful. Okay, thank you. But I found out that what I'm really doing, Charles, a lot of times is I'm just witnessing. I'm helping somebody get over their past, get over what they've been over, gone through. A lot of times in leadership, even on the job, people are going through something and we don't realize it. And so my passion comes out through that because I don't want people to struggle like I've had to struggle. And so that's what witnesses is all about.
So, what gap in leadership or service were you determined to fill?
Oh, you're asking a very good question. I think the biggest one was helping people reach their destiny, opening doors for others when they don't know where the doors are. So I'm going to call those pathways, segues, call it what you want. But most of all, helping people challenge themselves. Sometimes we get very complacent. Most of all leaders, I've been that way. You get to a certain place in life, you're like, I'm done. Well, then you stop growing. And if you stop growing, you start dying. You literally do. You start dying. You start withering away, and you'll get plucked up like that. So I had to challenge myself. But that's why I say I separate myself around other people that keep me sharp. Don't let me walk down that path where I'm tempted. Hold me accountable 100% of the time. Tell me about myself because I need to hear that. But also tell me when I'm doing good because we need to hear that as well. So one of the things I do is every month, I think I told you about this, we have this thing called Men's Breakfast where we all meet, we have breakfast, but it's really about leadership and it's about ministry. It's about us having a private moment together as men and getting down into the thicket of what's really going on. Sometimes when we walk into a room, we know what's going on. Hey, brother, there's something going on. I can just see it. I can feel it. I can smell it. And so we kind of thrush that out so that when we leave that place, we're not the same as we came in.
Exactly. How do you help organizations move from intention to measurable results?
Most of the time by listening, writing down some of the key perspectives of what the organization is about. I'll go back to Starbucks. Starbucks primarily sells coffee. So I'm going to need to know something about coffee, how they get coffee beans here, what they do it, how they cook it, so on and so forth. You kind of need to know what makes a company tick. Well, when I come into an organization, I usually try to sit down with leadership and just shut my mouth and take notes and then ask questions when it's necessary. But if I don't know the landscape, I can't help them. And that's where you find a lot of problems in government. Very secretive, don't want to tell you the policy, but you need to follow it. No, we're going to stop right there. You're going to tell me the policy. Why was the policy built? Why was the policy voted on? What is the end result you're looking for when you come up with this policy? So I'll kind of give you an example. A lot of people don't understand what's going on with SNAP benefits. Those are food benefits you receive now. You got to go to work if you want to get them. I'm just going to say that up front. You got to work if you want to get them. Well, when I was growing up, you didn't have to do that. Times have changed. So you can accomplish that 3 different ways. You can get training, you can volunteer, you can go to school, or you can work. But don't just sit there and receive them, because if they take them away, you're going to be hungry. And I'll say this to us Americans. Leave this country if you can and go visit some other country. It'll give you a different perspective when you come back. Other countries don't have SNAP benefits. And you better not ask for no food if you're hungry, because you won't get none. Some countries you ask for food and you're homeless, you might get shot at just for asking. Because they'll tell you, go out in the field and pick it. What? Different perspective. We're so spoiled sometimes that we don't understand that the work we do is a collaborative effort. And that's why people like Dr. Martin Luther King and others, Malcolm X, tried to polarize communities by bringing them together, not separating them, not creating division.
Wow. What is the future of government innovation in your eyes?
Unfortunately, a lot of it is starting to turn to AI. Let's just be upfront. A lot of them are using, so I'm going to talk about the division I worked in, which was social services. A lot of them are using AI as the background to kind of look at application and kind of pre-qualify it. So, when you apply for government, you can only have so many resources, certain income, so on and so forth. One of the mistakes a lot of people make when it comes to government benefits is they look at their bills. Well, I'll say this, everybody got bills. Even the billionaires, trillionaires, they got bills. The millionaires got bills. That's not all inclusive when it comes to applying for benefits. So think about that when you apply. So if I'm making $1 million and I'm spending $2 million, I don't qualify. But just because you're spending more, that's not a qualifier. They're looking at poverty, and they set the tone for that federally. So if it's set federally, don't ask the state to change it because they're not. They can't. So you have to be aware of some of those misnomers, I should say.
Let's move over and talk a little bit about your work as a certified trainer and coach. What drew you to training and coaching as a profession?
Because I had done it when I worked for the government. So that was one of my jobs, was a regional trainer, basically / coach. I had to work with leaders, had to work with intergovernment agencies. So I worked for DSHS, but I also had to work with employment security, which is a different division. I had to work with sometimes ICE, which is immigration, because we dealt with immigrants. So we had to collaborate on a lot of different things. We call it interagency government things. So I had to learn to do that. And one of the things we would always have to do is try to find synergy, because we're dealing with the same clients. So we had to find synergy. Even though some of our policies didn't look the same, that's not the point. Is how do we come together where we can? And how do we find landscape to maybe eliminate policies that we don't need? I'm going to call it double government. Like you got one policy, I got another, and we're trying to do the same thing. Let's try to come up with an MOU where we can do that. An MOU is just a memorandum of understanding. You have this policy, I have that policy. How about we just collaborate on the policy so that they don't have to jump through 2 hoops, they jump through 1.
You're right. How do you help people unlock their potential?
I would say by spending time with them and getting to know them as a person, realizing what their skill set is and what it is they really want out of a job. Like I said, some people come to work 9 to 5, want that paycheck. I don't usually put my energy into those folk. I want people that want to strive to do something better, even if they're not going to stay with the organization I'm working with. But they want the pinnacle of life. They want to break the barriers. And usually you can pick up on that immediately if you're paying attention. Not that I'm the best, but because I've been around the best, I can usually pick up people's skill set right away just by watching them, just by listening. But also, if I meet somebody like a Charles King and they have the type of perspective and characteristics I'm looking for, I'm going to ask them, hey, can I spend a moment of time with you, show some interest, get their vesture, and then, kind of give them some leeway. Hey, what is it you're looking for? How can I help you? Basic question. How can I help you to help yourself? At the same time I'm helping them, they're always helping me.
So what's the most rewarding part of coaching others?
Seeing them shine um, at moments that they maybe didn't feel like they could. So I'll give you an example. When I went to Paris, this was about a health conclave for women. 300 and some odd people attended this conference. Very, very crowded, very, very vast. There was a lot of different people there from around the world. I met this one lady that really wasn't feeling herself, wasn't feeling that she was her best. And she showed me what she did, and I thought, wow, this lady is amazing. To get here from where she came, which was India, that I know women are not seen like they are in other countries, like they are sometimes seen as leaders in America. She told me some things that I won't share, but that she had been battered and all these other things. And I could just pick up on her tone. And I said, hey, you're going to knock it out the park. And then I said, if you need some help, you need somebody to be your cheerleader back there, let it be me. So she did. And she knocked it out the park. And she got a lot of business based on that. All I did was just lift her up at the moment she was being put down by some circumstances. You know, when a woman has been battered by a male, it hinders their lifestyle. Sometimes they don't believe in themselves. And so I wanted to apologize, number one, as a male, but I also wanted to let her know that her light was still shining and that don't let it flicker out.
You know, yeah, I got to ask you, what makes you so inspirational and motivational? Because I know that that had to be a big moment for her. But when you're doing this with your clients and so forth, what makes you that way? What is your motivation?
My mom, I might get a little emotional, but my mom went through a lot. You know, she told me some things that I can't really share, but I didn't know some of those things. I saw the effects of them. Sometimes rocking herself to sleep, crying all the time in a dark room. I didn't know what was going on as a child, but um, prior to graduation, she said, "Sit down. I'm going to tell you some things." And when she told me, Charles, it tore me apart. I wanted to go beat some people up, but she told me that's not the way to handle it. She said the way you handle it is to give people back love, to give them back your faith, your trust, your integrity. And so that's what inspired me. And when I saw this woman, I kind of saw my mom for a moment, kind of saw my sister. And I was like, I'm not going to allow her to be a victim. Not today. Not when she needs to shine. And so that's kind of what inspired me. I told her a little bit about my mom. And I believe that's why she allowed me into her space, into her circle. Because I really didn't know her. I just kind of saw the wounds.
What training certification impacted you the most?
Oh wow! I had to take a social worker class. So my degrees in ministry has got a master's in ministry, which is in religion, education, and church law. Way off the spectrum, kind of from social work. But if you really think about it, the church is social work. And so when I took this class, I was falling asleep. I wasn't taking notes. I was like, whatever, just let them pass me. Until I had to take the test. And when I took the test, I thought, wow, I need to start listening up. I just learned a lot. A lot of it is pattern based, I should say. A lot of it's based on where we come from and what we go through. And before you know it, becomes your psyche. It's something that you play in the back of your head every day if you've been through trauma. And so we had to learn these 4 different segments, and I won't talk about it here, but when I learned them, Charles. I will say that I began to employ them with clients, with staff, when it presented itself. And that's what made me successful, was taking this class, but taking it seriously as a leader, not just going to the class, not just want my certificate and walk away. I was like, I need to find a way to use this in my daily routine. One of the things I did every day was I think this was my 5th year of leadership. I came in and I high-fived everybody. And then we had a huddle. So every morning we'd have a huddle, be like, is everybody happy? What do you need to put a smile on your face this morning. Just that alone woke a whole lot of folk up. What, we're having a huddle? We're getting coffee and donuts? Yep. And I'm asking you what you want. I'm not telling you what I want. So that really changed how employees started respecting me and how they responded to me.
How do you approach teaching adults with different learning styles?
Wow. People with different learning styles typically have some things that you may be able to recognize: a disability, different learning style. One learning style is kinesthetic. The other one is photographic memory. Some people listen. Some people are not looking at you. You need to recognize those things. Because I think as leaders, especially in today's environment, we don't want you looking at your phone if I'm talking. Well, that might be how they learn. Sometimes we want eye-to-eye contact. Sometimes that's not safe for some people when they've been through trauma. So you got to recognize some of those traits, and you got to work around them. Say something that keeps them interested. Sometimes ask a question, and that kind of brings them back in. Like if I feel somebody's not paying attention, I might be like, "So, Michael, what's your thought on that?" All of a sudden, I've got their attention. And I might ask them to give me some feedback in a way that fits their lifestyle. So, Michael, if you come from this community where people are affluent, how would you see this program working out? Because I don't come from that. And listen to what they have to say and see how maybe we can tweak the program or the policy to meet everybody's aspect of life, not just one aspect.
So as we think about, as I was just asking about the people with the different learning styles, and, with you mentioning the certification there in social work, with those being directly, and with your work being directly connected to people, like up close and personal as you're doing these trainings and learning of people's different styles and so forth. When you think about, reaching out and how you're trying to help these people to become a better version of themselves, or to even be a better professional because they want to be top tier professionals. As you think about that, do you ever sometimes go or get to the point that you say, well, I don't know if I'm actually succeeding in doing this or not? How do you know if you're actually reaching your clients?
That's a good question, Charles. Most of the time I know by asking a certain question and by listening. So with clients that I work with, we have to take an application. They have demographic information on there. A lot of it's got, their ethnicity. Although I need to make sure that I keep a memory of some of that, so that, because I'm not going to always have the application in front of me, and that I try to make it personal. So when they come into the room, I maybe remember their first name, one of the children's names, because when I feel like I'm interested, or they feel like I'm interested in their best outcome, they're listening and they're going to give me the feedback I'm looking for. So that's usually how I interact with a client, asking introspective questions. So not one where I want a certain answer, but I want an answer. Why did you come in here and apply for benefits today? Just
right.
I'm not asking why did you come in and apply for benefits over and you live in a $3,500 or $35 million house. I'm not answering that question. What brought you in today to apply for benefits? Usually they'll tell you, and I can figure out the lie before they even get there, because I'm listening, I'm watching. So I try to give you an example of that. One time I was interviewing a client, came in, I'm gonna say in a $100,000 car.
Oh, no.
It was an Audi, nice top of the line Audi. She had a Chanel purse. She had a newest iPhone. She had all these bling bling watches, and she had all these shoes. And I'm like, woo-wee. I think she got to be over income. Mm-hmm. Well, what she was doing was she was interviewing for people in her family she wasn't interviewing for herself. Okay. I needed to tell her, because she spoke a different language, hey, I need to interview the people that are applying for benefits. Little did I know, Charles, that she was actually frauding the government. So I'll just try to give you some introspective of how she was doing that. She was renting to these people, which she can do. She was charging them all this rent that they couldn't really pay. So she was charging some of them $1,200 a month rent, which they couldn't pay. They were finding a way to pay it. Found out they were selling their food stamps to her against the law. And so what she was doing, selling those food stamps on the black market, so on and so forth, I didn't get it together until one of the clients told on her. You know, that lady, she won't give me my food stamps. I said, what do you mean? You get your food stamps on the EBT card. How'd that happen? She gave them to her. She made her like her payee because she's a family member. I said, well, you know, you selected to make her a payee. You can do that, but tell me more. Make a long story short, I brought that lady in that was defrauding the government, kind of exposed her a little bit. I said, hey, I ain't going to turn you in because I don't know how this is going to affect you and the other people you are supposed to be serving. But I'll tell you this, the visa you got no longer any good because she had a visa to go back to her country. So it's no longer any good. What do you mean? When you commit fraud over $5,000, usually somebody knows. I said, if these people told me, they've told some people in your community, and your community has told your country. Am I probably right? She said, I didn't think about it. I said, if you just take a look at that car and that bling bling you bringing in here, you told your story before you walked in the door. And I said, you know, some people are a little bit more secretive about the lifestyle they have outside when they're frauding. I said, you know, if he hadn't come in with all the bling, I would have never known. I said, but the first thing I did was run that driver's license and that license plate. And I figured out where you were living. So I kind of exposed her, but I built a level of trust with her that she told me, look, it'd probably be best if I didn't do this anymore because my community, you don't really know. I said, no, I don't. I'm not from your country. One thing I do know is that they'll kill people. That part I know. I read about it on the news. I've seen it. They kill people. So you might want to think about that. And so she said, yeah, you're right.
Wow. You know, that's really, really, that's something because, you know, that happens a lot. And, you know, here in this technological age now, not from the time that you and I grew up, it's so prevalent for people to do that. The only thing that I always ask myself, especially when I read or see something like that, is the why, because I really don't understand what would make somebody want to do that. And I know that people do things for many reasons, and I'm not judging them for what they do because they're going to do what they do. But it just kind of blows my mind that some people actually take that much time to go through a scheme to commit fraud. And it's so layered and so leveled that, you know, they're able to get away with that for years before something cracks in the armor.
Yeah.
So as we got these potential leaders and leaders that are watching tonight, can you tell them exactly what are they going to get when they connect with Doge for consulting services that are going to help them become that much better?
They're going to get Michael Wilkins, the father, Michael Wilkins, the pastor, Michael Wilkins, the leader. They're going to get the whole package, not just a piece of me. And what they're going to find is a level of integrity that maybe they didn't get before. They're also going to get an open space, but they're going to get most of all honesty and trust. I like to get to know people before I do business with them. Sometimes business doesn't always allow that, but that's the best way for me to help people explore their destiny and reach the pinnacle of their business. You know, a lot of businesses look at their bottom line, how much money they're making. I try to caution people on that because if you think about it, Charles, we don't all control the economy or every aspect of the economy. What we control is our business. And sometimes businesses take a loss, sometimes they don't. What is it that you really are looking for at the end of the day? A customer base? Are you looking for a certain amount of dollars? Or are you looking to serve? Because if I hear people say they want to serve, those are usually the people that become my clients. People that say that, hey, I'm just looking at my bottom line. I might be able to help you with your bottom line, but we're not going to be able to grow your business because that's all you're looking at is just your bottom line. Right. I look at some businesses, and I'm going to name one, McDonald's. Mm-hmm. How come McDonald's is so successful? Sure ain't because they got the best hamburger and french fries. They're convenient. There's a certain time frame that if you go through the walk-through or through the drive-through, they want you served. People get accustomed to that. And so they'll go pick up that hamburger, even though it's not the best, because they're getting a quality of service at the end of the day that meets their criteria. Some people want to go somewhere else where they get a better hamburger. They usually do. But McDonald's is convenient. It's in all the right places. And they give back. So they're not just asking people to buy, they're also serving the community. That's what Ronald McDonald's house is about. Yes. So those people are in my scope of business. When you want to serve the community and give back, I can help find a way for you to do that and help you grow. And levity within the business frame of the community that you serve and the clients that you host.
Wow. So can you tell us this? What's your philosophy on personal development?
My philosophy on personal development is always be open to learn. As leaders, don't put yourself in this quagmire that you know everything. Always be open to learn. Second of all, always be open to listen. And act like you're interested in the subject that's talking to you. I usually take notes, give them some feedback about what it is they gave me so they know I'm vested. I believe that's where Deutsch is a little bit different in other companies. I'm not looking at just what you're going to pay me. I'm looking at what we're vested in doing together. How can we both grow our business together so that I'm not just hosting a client, I'm hosting a friendship, a partnership, which makes things different than other communities.
So how do you help people overcome self-doubt?
By telling them that fear is the worst critic. The Bible says, without faith, it's impossible to please God. Without faith, it's impossible for you to get where you want to go. If you don't have faith, you have doubt. Now, I'm not saying you ignore certain things. We all go through that human element of fear and doubt at some point. But you got to have a way to turn that off. And it's called your mindset. So I also teach a class on positive mindset or positive affirmations. And basically it's waking up in the morning and starting out that way. I say things to myself and make sure I find something congruent with it. Like treating myself. I'm saying I'm the best version of myself today, that I'm going to accomplish this task at the highest level. I tell myself that. And what I don't think people understand is that whatever comes out of this mouth, the universe is going to respond to it. It's like a boomerang. I say I'm no good, the universe responds. And it finds a way back to you because that's all you were looking for. So tell yourself you're the best version of yourself today as a leader, even as a layperson, because you are, and believe it.
So what's the biggest misconception about coaching?
That we can coach everybody. Can't coach everybody. Can't do it. There's this scripture in the Bible that says, be careful about putting your pearl before a swine because they'll tarnish the gift. Like I told you, I don't take on every client. Everybody's not my client. And I'm not for everybody. So I have to be very careful about who I vet and who I work with, because if I don't do the job they're asking for, I've already lost other potential clients because we talk to one another. So I'll say this, one person told me in leadership that, you can lose a lot of clients by just losing one client, by not treating them the best, by not giving them the best, because they're going to go tell 100 people. And if you do a good job, they might go tell one, but that one might go tell 1,000 or 10,000. So make sure that you do the best you can at all times, and never promise something you can't deliver. So if I can't do something, not going to tell you I can. And if I fall short, I'm going to be honest about it, because there are times when we're going to fail, but it's okay to fail as long as we learn something and we come back and try better the next time.
So how do you measure growth in the people you train?
I don't want to say I just look at it latitudinally. Some people look at it like they got to get from this level to that level. I look at it in steps. Have they gotten from step A to step B? Maybe gone back to step A to step B, but it's foundational. So there's, 4 key things I kind of look at. Is that, are they taking this seriously? Are they applying it to their daily lives? Are they making sure that they go back and look at what they've done wrong or right, and that they're honest with themselves about it and with me about it? And it's okay to take criticism, as long as you understand I'm not critiquing you, I'm critiquing what you're trying to do. So I'm not critiquing the individual, I'm trying to critique them on whatever it is that they're trying to accomplish. I try to separate those two, because I feel like some people, when they hear you say, well, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, they hear the you part, they don't hear about what you didn't do right. Be careful how use those words with people when you're being critical. It's very important.
So what's one principle you believe every leader must master?
Humility.
Ooh.
Number one, humility. I know a lot of great leaders, have a pedigree, went to a good college, come from a good community, very impactful, not humble. Today's day and age with the cell phone and social media, you're going to get called out. You're going to get called out. Be humble. I believe that's why some people have eclipsed their stratosphere, because they are humble and they're not afraid to let their audience or their clients see that. One person that I'm thinking of he runs a company called Berkshire Hathaway. You Google his name. He was the CEO of that company. Very humble. I never got to meet him, but he impacted something I was working on. And I thought, wow, he still lives in the same house that he had before he became a billionaire. He's driving the same car that he had before he became a billionaire. Not to say he doesn't have expensive cars. He doesn't care who knows that he does. He's just being him. He's being his authentic self. That's important. And it's because he's humble.
Yeah, so when you say being humble, I could definitely feel you on that, because I think we all should have some form of humility as we go through life anyway. But what about these people that are so big and stuck with these egotistical personalities, and they call themselves A-types all the time?
Well, this is what I can say to that, Charles, is that there's one person I like to name that is somebody that I admire in life very, very much. Steve Jobs. He died of brain cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say it again. He died of brain cancer. Your money ain't going to save your life. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
He was a multi-billionaire at that time. Didn't save his life. That's why you need to be humble. That's why you need to be humble. You can't buy everything. Right. If you can, then you calling yourself God. Buy the sun out of the earth then. If you got that much money, buy it. I don't think you can. Buy the rain away when you don't want it to rain. You can't. Change the weather. You can't. That's why you need to be humble, because there's some things you can't change with all the money in the world. I'm not going to name any people, but there's been some people that one day they're up, the next day they're down because of their money. Because of their money. Well, I don't want it to just be my money that's important. My impact is way more important because that lives after I die. Yes, my money might in different hands, but Martin Luther King wasn't a very rich man. Look what he did. Mother Teresa, not a very rich woman. Look what she did. It's because they cared more about the people than they did their money and their egos. Yes. So I think that we have to be careful because we will get called out. And, to me, leadership is more than just about you. It's about the people you are going to have the blessing to be around. I'm not going to say boss over because that's taken out of perspective.
Now, I do have one other follow up into this because, as you mentioned something about Steve Jobs, which, I'm sure that he had to have some humility for the times that he's lost his company and he's got it back. But I want to kind of like bring this into focus as in today. And if you can speak about this, if it's not uncomfortable, I would appreciate it. But so as you're talking about just buying everything, the perfect example of that is we've got Bill Gates buying up all the water. We've got Elon Musk thinking that he is God because he's like just buying and doing whatever he wants to because, of whatever have you. When you have people like that, is that really setting a good example? And if not, why are the people that actually follow this madness think that there's something so cute about it?
That's a good question, Charles. I would say, number one, we empower them with social media by watching, their IG page, their TikTok page, whatever. We're giving them the power. Choose not to give them that power. And they're not as powerful as some of us may think they are because they have this money. So, people say Bill Gates buying up the water. Well, Bill Gates, I'd like to see you buy up all the water in the world. 3/4 of the world's water. I don't think you could do it because we won't let you. We ain't gonna let you. So, like, we have power. Sometimes we just don't realize how much power we do have, Charles. Mm-hmm. And that's where our voice matters. That's why you see people out protesting. That's why sometimes it gets bad. Unfortunately, sometimes it gets violent because people get fed up. And I'm not saying with just the Bill Gates or the Elon Musks, but they know that their levity has a certain borderline. That's why they take what they can while they can. But it's because we let them. Because unfortunately in America, and I'm going to say pretty much 9/10 of the world, we think money's everything. No, money's a tool. Number one, it's just a tool. So back in biblical days, they didn't have money. They had a bartering system. You got meal for this or a cow for that. Think about it that way. Because when you think about it that way, maybe you'll look at money a little bit different. It's a tool. It's not a God. It can't rule people. It takes us to utilize it. But I feel like a lot of times we're pointing the finger at them when we should be pointing the finger back at us. We're giving them the power. So I'll give you an example. I live in the state of Texas, and Elon's trying to build a data center here. If you guys know anything about these data centers, they use a lot of water, a lot of electricity. And if you live in Texas, our electricity goes out a lot because of the hurricanes and the rain and storms. So people are like, Well, guess what? He pretty much already got the structure already built.
Yep.
And it's going to bring 4,000 construction jobs. It's going to bring a lot of income. So see, that's how you get us. Well, it's going to give you a job. You can say no. You can create your own job. But a lot of times we're saying yes when we really want to say no. because they have this center of influence called money. And I'm going to call it commerce. But we have to sometimes say no. Because what am I going to get with that job? What are we going to get with this data center? What else is there going to come with it? Sometimes we're just so willing to say yeah because we need a job. And I'm not saying say no. I'm saying look at all angles if you can.
Let's talk a little bit about your work as a pastor and faith leader. First of all, can you tell us what led you to become an ordained pastor?
God cornered me. God cornered me. I was running. But as I told you, my grandmother was very, very integral in our church, our local church, taking me to church there. People looked up to her, and I felt the gravity of that, but I also liked it. I liked the attention. And, I told you that the pastor asked me to give a Martin Luther King speech one year. I did. And I got this standing ovation, which was what I expected, but I didn't know that it was very inspirational at the time. And it gave people faith and hope. And the speech was called Wake Up America, We're Not Free Yet. So I'll just kind of give that out there. It's protected. People can't use it. But it came from my heart. It really came from my heart. That opportunity opened the segue in the door for me to become a pastor. So I asked to volunteer at this one church where my family was very invested in. I said, hey, I'd like to become a pastor. He said, great, come to this class, come to this training. I went to some of it, but I wasn't really interested in the details. I just wanted the certificate and be able to preach. Well, you got to serve. And so pastoring is really about serving. It's not about just preaching. You're going to do that maybe 10% of the time. It's about serving. And I learned to serve. I was on so many different committees. This pastor had me wore out. He was putting me everywhere, but I was serving. And that's where that humility picked up. And after I got through serving, it became fun because I felt God in my life. And I felt like I was giving something that people could use. A lot of people are looking for God. They just don't know it. And I'm going to tell you, he ain't lost. You are. He everywhere. I thought God was lost. No, Michael was lost. And he was looking for me the whole time. I just didn't open the door. I didn't let him in because I thought I could do it on my own. You can't. If you can do it on your own, try. I'm going to tell you to try.
Yeah, I doubt very seriously they'll be able to do that. But, stranger things have happened. How does ministry influence your leadership style?
It's biblically based, so it's the 10 Commandments, obedience, trust, faith, integrity, and all those things are talked about in the Bible. And so I think about those as a pastor and leader, that how am I going to tell somebody to do something I'm not doing myself? And people can see what you're doing a lot of times more than they can hear what you're saying. That's kind of the nutshell of a leader. They're not necessarily listening to what you're saying. They're watching what you're doing, how you're living, how you treat your wife, how you treat your children, how you treat others in the community. That's a key factor in a lot of things. And some pastors are starting to figure that out because now they have an online service. And then they go home. I'm not a pastor right now. Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. Because my children called me out sometimes. My other friends, I was at a barbecue one time. I think I was drinking some alcohol. And then, this lady told me, I don't think that's what a Christian should be doing. I said, well, I didn't make the alcohol. It was here. She said, think about who you're affecting. You could become a stumbling block. I didn't really think about that till I met an alcoholic who was in my family. And I was like, whoa, she's right. And so I said to myself, well, I'll do that at home when nobody's watching me. Well, God's watching me. And so I got to a point where it just wasn't meeting the need anymore because my faith was, anything else was, I just gave it up. I didn't need it anymore because it wasn't doing anything for me. Now, that's not a judgment. That's Michael Wilkins. It just wasn't doing anything for me. I thought it was going to hide the pain, kill the pain. No, the pain was still there. I was just masking it. So I had to go get some counseling and find out what was really leading me to do what I was doing. And some of it was my mom's struggles. A lot of them were my own struggles. And thank God for somebody helping me open that Pandora's box, I'm going to call it, and discovering who Michael really was.
Well, can you tell us what role does compassion play in your work?
It's the pinnacle of what I do. It's behind humility is probably the second principle. If I can't be passionate about what I'm doing, I can't effectively help another person. That's why I said when I help some agency or somebody that calls on me, I'm all in. Not part the way, not 50%, all the way in. A lot of times I'm going to spend a good majority of my time with that one individual or that one company. Nobody else is going to bother me. Nobody else is going to get my time because I can't be effective unless I give them 100%. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's very, very important. So some leaders stretch themselves thin. They can do that. I've done it before, but I found that if I'm over here 50% of the time and 75% over there, I might not be able to give them that 100. There's a song out by a singer right now that I got 80 on your 20, 60 on your 40. Really what she's talking about is that if you ain't got 100, we're going to come together and meet and be 100. And that's all I'm saying.
Yes.
Is that a lot of times people expect Michael to come in there with 100%. No, I need your 22. Because if you ain't going to bring your 20, don't ask me to bring my 80. I'll leave it at home and give my energy to the sofa or to my dog. You're not taking all my energy. Bring your energy too. Otherwise, we can't accomplish anything.
That is, oh my God. You know what? That's 500% right there. But, we get so many people that's got this misconstruement is what I call it, because a lot of times, I don't mind giving the benefit of the doubt, but on a continuum, no. But there are a lot of people that really don't understand that in order to get something out, you got to put something in. How is it that they think? Because, this is even when people go to church. Is how do you think you just come to church and you just want to get everything out, but you're not going to put anything in? Now, when I say that, I'm not talking about the tithes part because I know that that's another thing here, but I'm just saying, when you come to church and it's supposed to be as influential, it's supposed to be motivational, it's supposed to be spiritual to help to soothe the soul and the spirit in order to help you to continue to walk down that righteous path. They think that they're coming just to get everything out, but they don't have to put anything else in. How do you get them to change their minds on that?
I'm going to say perspective. Some people calling the glass half full. I call some of those people bench riders. They want the ring, but they don't want to play in the game. I'll be like, no, you're going to have to get your hands dirty. You're going to have to get your hands dirty if you want to work with Michael. And so that's why sometimes I don't work with companies because they're paying you. They want you to do all the work. Find somebody else. I'm not doing all the work. You want me to do all the work? I'm going to be the CEO of your company. Sorry, I'm taking over. I'm not doing all the work. You're going to have to do some work. You might have to do more than me. If you really want to change your company, get dirty. Get down into the grease a little bit. Get down and that's what a lot of times leaders don't understand. The line employees are looking for that. They don't want you just showing up at 9 o'clock and they're showing up at 7 and you leaving at 2 and they leave at 5. How about you stay the whole day? How about you show them they're important? Because they're helping your bottom line. Now in government, maybe we don't see the bottom line because it's based on tax dollars. We're kind of always in the black until there's a deficit. But at the end of the day, we still all should be given 100%. And exactly. That's where I found, so I'm going to talk about fraud again for a minute and then I'll leave it alone. Sometimes that's why you find people stealing. Because they find employees in government sitting at a job on a cell phone all day, fraud. They ain't working, but they're getting a paycheck. Remember who's paying you? The community. The community's paying you. So do some work. turn that computer on, get something done. That bothers me more than anything. Was somebody just come and sit in front of a computer or sit at work and do nothing and get paid for it. You fired. If I'm the boss, you're getting fired. I don't care who you are. Even if you're my relative, you're fired. Because that's not what this is about. Job means work, which means embedded that you need to do something to earn it.
Right. How do you balance spiritual leadership with professional leadership?
They're one and the same. I don't separate them. I know some people do. I know they keep their spiritual life over here and their professional life over there. They're one and the same for me. I can't do one without the other. I can't swing from one pendulum to the other. They're one and the same. I can't have a professional life without my faith because my professional life was birthed through my faith. There was no other way that was going to happen. So I don't separate them. That doesn't mean I come in and tell people that they need to believe in God. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that my faith is what drives me professionally. My faith is what gives me intuition. My faith is what opens the landscape. The faith that I have will open the door for me or keep it shut. Mm-hmm. And so, as you know, people probably can see now that I've been on this almost an hour and something, I'm very passionate about what I have to say. And I'm not going to back down just to be nice. I'll be quiet when I need to be. But if you ask me into a room, don't expect me to sit there like a bobblehead because that's not who I am. I'm not the bobblehead. I'm not going to just give you a yes answer because you want one. Right. I'm going to give you the answer that's in my heart, which comes from a true place. And so again, I'll say that Michael doesn't separate spirituality and professionalism or his faith. They're one and the same.
I got a comment here that I want to put on the screen for you that I would love for you to answer here. Okay. It's from, there it is, it's from A. Neil Sela, and it says, the concept of switch tasking, you cannot be in two places at the same time.
True that. Don't try to be. So that's why I said that I'm intent on giving 100% focus to what I'm doing. Example, if I have to go from one meeting to the other, I give myself enough time space to get from one place to the other and finish that meeting to the full. Meaning I'm not leaving those, I gotta run. That's not fair. I always make sure I arrive on time. And I keep my mind focused on the task where I'm at. So I know sometimes, leaders gotta be 2-3 places in a day and their minds where, what they feel like is the most important meeting. The one's gonna give them the best latitude or, give them what they need at the end of the day. I don't try to do that. I try to put myself in a cohort and stay there. And then when I leave that cohort, move to a different place and try not to segue them both. It's not easy, but it's necessary.
And he also says, here, I'll put this on the screen, that he agreed with you with the previous statement that you can't separate the two.
Thank you, Neil. I appreciate that. I used to, but it's just too difficult because to me, it's like you're wearing 3 or 4 different hats. And then I'll say it this way. Somebody will find out you're a pastor out in your professional life and you're not trying to profess that or portray that, and you get called out. Uh-oh. Ain't you a pastor? Yeah, I was trying not to be while we're playing basketball. Oh, now I got called out. So I don't separate the two because people, your light goes. The Bible says, "Let your light so shine that when men see you, they see the Father." If your light's shining, don't let it flicker. Don't let it flicker, because your leadership is now flickering. You have to let them both shine together.
And final question for you: what's the most powerful testimony you've witnessed?
This one's going to make me very emotional. I was diagnosed with cancer in 2010. In 2011, I had surgery and I had to go through chemotherapy. I met this young man, which It's very surprising because they do adults and children different. But he was out in the I'm going to call it the lobby with his parents. Kid was just playing and happy, and he had all these things attached to him. I knew his body was in distress because he was jaundiced, which means yellowing. But he was just so happy. It was contagious, Charles. It was very contagious. And I wanted to know who this kid was. I just did because it gave me hope. One day, I didn't see him. I made the mistake of asking his parents where he was. I said, hey, where's your little boy? I just like to be around him because whatever he's got going on, I need that. And they said he went home. I made my assumption like, oh, wow, he made it. Started clapping and jumping. And she came up and she said, you seem like a man of God. No, he went to heaven. I started crying. I, got very emotional. And she came over and said something to me. And she said, hey, my son wasn't supposed to live 6 months. He lived close to 7 years. She said the thing he did, Michael, was because we have badges on when we go into chemo. She says, he lived each day with intent. Are you living your life? Ooh, she made me have a different whole vibe. And she says, God's calling you to do something real big. I can just feel it. Go do you. Stop being concerned about outside inferences. She spoke life into me, Charles, in a way that I'd never felt in a while. Because I thought about committing suicide during that little bout. I just was in this moment of life where I didn't want to live. And she gave me life that day. I knew it came from God. I ran into her later on. It kind of opened the door, like I said, for motivational speaking, but that was my greatest witness and testimony that I ever felt in my life because it gave me so much hope at a point where I felt like I didn't have it. Even as a pastor, even as a man of God, I'm human. And I thanked her for that because a lot of people don't speak into your life. Sometimes they just speak to you. So we have to be careful about what we say sometimes.
Yes. So in that being said, what is it? A. Neil Smith he just put this in the chat, so I'll put it up on the screen. He says he's a survivor of prostate cancer and 2 strokes.
Wow. Praise you, Neil. Praise you. Thank you for your revealing that to me. I'll keep you in prayer. It's not easy to go through what we go through. One thing I'm finding out, Charles, and I'll close with this statement, is that my health is my wealth. So a lot of people talk about money. Steve Jobs had a lot. He found out that his health was his wealth. If we dead, we can't make no money. If we sick, we're probably going to lose a good majority of it. So your health is your wealth. We have to watch what we eat and what we do with our body. Our body is a living sacrifice. It's a temple. God gave it to us for a reason. Be careful how you treat it.
Yes. So in closing, are there any other words of wisdom and encouragement that you have for our audience? How they could connect with you via social media, how they can go to your website, learn some things there, any of those things?
Yeah, sure. My website is Deutsche Consulting LLC. It has a web number that I can't remember now, but if you look up the Deutsche Consulting LLC, you'll get there. I'm also on IG at Positivisme 4600. I'm on LinkedIn under Michael A. Wilkins. And this is what I would say in closing. Where your mind goes, your energy flows. Wherever your mind goes, your energy flows. If you believe it, you can achieve it. Don't listen to what other people got to say. Listen to what you're saying to yourself.
I want to say this in closing. I want to thank each and every individual that's watched the show and have participated. I appreciate you guys, and I hope that you guys took plenty of lessons / information from what Michael had to tell us about leadership, because leadership is very important, especially in today's times.
Amen.
And for those of you that are watching on any of our channels, especially our YouTube channels, if you have not yet subscribed and enabled all notifications, I ask if you will please support us by doing so. and we definitely appreciate that. I also want to put this up before I do this closing monologue. I want to say this to all of you that are watching. I need you guys to please start checking out our website, AmericanBlackandWhite.us, because there on AmericanBlackandWhite.us, all of the resources that you need, either to become a guest on the show or in participating with the things that we're going to be doing to build a community. We would definitely appreciate you guys going there, because we are also going to start bringing and streaming live all of our special events that we do. We'll be streaming live via the website. You will still be able to watch on the YouTube channel for our regular shows that we have for 7 days a week. But we're going to be doing specials via our website as well. So we appreciate the support. So in closing, Michael, your journey reminds us that leadership is not a title, it's a lifestyle. It's the courage to stand in the gap, the discipline to build systems that serve people, and the humility to acknowledge the shoulders you stand on. Your mother and great-grandmother poured into you a strength that now pours into communities, organizations, and individuals across this nation. Your story is a blueprint for purpose. Your voice is a catalyst for change. Your work is a testament to what happens when calling meets commitment. Thank you for sharing your heart, your wisdom, and your legacy with us tonight on America in Black and White. Good night, you all. Please have a great, great weekend. And I will tell you guys, if you have the time, I would appreciate you guys checking out our series finale on our healthcare in underserved communities on Changing Trends tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You guys